The stellar nomad shuddered violently as sparks flew across the cockpit. Alarms wailed in Marcus Vance's ears, the red warning lights reflecting off the cracked visor of his flight helmet. He punched the controls, trying to stabilize the ship, but the damage was too severe. Somewhere in the hyperspace relay system, something had gone catastrophically wrong. Mayday! Mayday! This is Lieutenant Marcus Vance of the Stellar Nomad. Requesting immediate assistance. Coordinates. He glanced at the navigation console. The numbers were scrambled, flickering between values. Unknown. The ship groaned like a dying beast, and Marcus felt the unmistakable pull of a planet's gravity well. Through the viewport, he saw it, a lush, shimmering orb wreathed in swirling blue clouds. The moon was breathtaking, but the reality of the situation was far from picturesque. He was going down fast. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, the hull ignited in a fiery blaze. Marcus braced himself, clutching the armrests as the Nomad hurtled toward the surface. The ground rose to meet him with terrifying speed, and then impact. Everything went dark. Marcus woke to the acrid stench of burning metal and the low hum of the forest around him. His body ached, his head throbbed, but he was alive. The stellar nomad wasn't so lucky. It lay crumpled in a smoking heap, one wing buried in the dirt and the other torn clean off. Marcus unbuckled himself from the pilot's chair, his boots crunching on broken glass as he staggered out of the wreckage. The landscape was surreal. Towering trees with glowing, translucent leaves stretched high into the sky, their trunks veined with pulsing blue light. The ground was carpeted in moss that shifted colors as he stepped on it, and streams of liquid silver meandered lazily through the terrain. The air was heavy with the scent of something sweet and alien, like a mix of honey and ozone. Beautiful, Marcus muttered, wincing as he touched a gash on his forehead. And deadly, no doubt. He knew the first priority was survival. Grabbing his emergency pack from the ship, he took inventory, a compact energy pistol, a multi-tool, a week's worth of rations, and a distress beacon. The beacon was his lifeline, but as he activated it, his stomach sank. The display blinked red, signaling that the signal couldn't breach the planet's dense atmosphere. Great. Just great. Marcus turned to the forest, debating his next move, when he caught sight of something or someone moving in the shadows. A flicker of green skin and silver hair darted between the trees. His heart raced. Alien wildlife? Or something worse? Hello, he called, his voice trembling slightly. He gripped the energy pistol tightly. I don't mean any harm. Silence answered him. Then, suddenly, they appeared. From the forest stepped three figures, humanoid but distinctly alien. Their skin shimmered a deep, emerald green under the moonlight, and their long, flowing hair glowed like molten starlight. They wore armor made of what appeared to be woven bark and bone, intricately carved and adorned with bioluminescent patterns. Each carried a spear tipped with jagged crystal, which they aimed squarely at Marcus's chest. He froze, raising his hand slowly. I'm guessing you're not here to welcome me with open arms. The tallest of the three, a striking woman with piercing violet eyes, stepped forward. Her gaze was intense, unyielding, as she studied him. She said something in a musical, lilting language Marcus couldn't understand. The other two murmured in agreement, their expressions wary but curious. I don't understand, Marcus said, gesturing helplessly. Do you speak Dash? Before he could finish, the tallest one gestured sharply, and the other two surged forward. Marcus barely had time to react before they knocked the pistol from his hand and forced him to his knees. Their strength was incredible, far beyond what he'd expect from a human. His heart pounded as the tallest woman stepped closer, tilting her head as if considering what to do with him. Marcus tried again. Wait. I have a translator. Slowly, carefully, he reached into his pack and pulled out the universal translator device. The alien leader tensed but didn't stop him. He activated the device, holding it out as it began to hum and blink, attempting to analyze their language. A moment later, her voice came through the translator, distorted but intelligible. "Outsider. Why have you come here?" Marcus exhaled in relief. "I didn't come here on purpose. My ship crashed. I'm stranded." The woman exchanged glances with her companions, her expression unreadable. "No one comes here by accident." "Well, I did," Marcus said, gesturing to the wreckage behind him. "I don't mean any harm. I just need help." She studied him for a long moment before lowering her spear. The others followed suit, though their eyes remained suspicious. "You are fragile," she said, almost to herself. "Yet you survived the descent. Perhaps there is more to you than it seems." Marcus decided not to mention the luck and adrenaline that had carried him this far. "My name is Marcus Vance." "What's yours?" The translator hesitated, then spoke her name, Veska. "I am the leader of the Averii." "Averii," Marcus repeated, nodding. "Nice to meet you." Veska didn't respond, her gaze lingering on him as if searching for something hidden. Finally, she motioned to her companions. "Come. You will explain yourself to the elders." "Elders?" Marcus asked, rising cautiously. "Yes," Veska said, her tone final. "And pray they do not decide to kill you." Marcus swallowed hard, glancing back at the ruined stellar nomad. If he wanted to survive on this moon, he'd have to play by the Averei's rules. And judging by the look on Veska's face, that wouldn't be easy. Marcus trudged through the dense jungle, flanked by the Averii warriors. The alien moon's bioluminescent glow lit their path, casting surreal patterns of light and shadow across the terrain. Veska led the group, her spear in hand and her posture regal but guarded. Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the way the Averii moved silent and fluid, as if they were part of the environment itself. By comparison, every step he took felt clumsy and loud. The village came into view as they crested a ridge. Nestled in a vast clearing, it was a stunning blend of nature and architecture. Homes built into the sides of massive trees glowed softly, their walls adorned with luminous crystals. Bridges of woven vines connected platforms high above, while the ground level buzzed with activity. Averii women of all ages moved about, tending to crops, sharpening weapons, and caring for iridescent creatures that resembled large, feathered cats. When the group entered the village, all eyes turned to Marcus. Conversation ceased, and curious murmurs rippled through the crowd. He felt the weight of their stares, their distrust palpable. Veska barked a few sharp words in their language, and the crowd parted, making way as she led him to a central platform where the elders awaited. The Council of Elders sat in a semicircle atop a platform woven from living tree roots. Each elder radiated an aura of authority, their hair and armor adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to glow with an inner light. The eldest among them, a woman with hair like liquid silver, leaned forward, her piercing eyes fixed on Marcus. "You bring an outsider to our sanctuary, Veska," she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Explain." Veska bowed her head. "This man, Marcus Vance, fell from the stars. He claims to be here by accident." The elder's eyes narrowed. "The stars do not bring accidents." Marcus cleared his throat, activating the translator. "With respect, my ship malfunctioned. I didn't plan to come here. I just need help to survive until I can repair my beacon and call for rescue." The elder studied him for a long moment. "You are weak," she said bluntly. "How would a fragile being like you survive our moon? Already, you must rely on our protection." Marcus bristled but chose his words carefully. "I may not be as strong as you, but I have skills. Knowledge. I can help." "Help?" another elder scoffed. "With what? You can barely stand upright on this ground." Before Marcus could respond, Veska raised a hand. "He survived the crash and the jumble to reach us. That alone proves he is not ordinary. Let him prove his worth before we decide his fate." The elders exchanged glances, then nodded reluctantly. The silver-haired elder fixed Marcus with a cold stare. "Very well. You will stay under Veska's watch. Fail to earn your place, and you will not stay at all." Life among the HFY Veska assigned Marcus a small dwelling on the outskirts of the village, a hollowed-out tree fitted with simple furnishings. She wasted no time in setting expectations. "You are not a guest here, Marcus Vance. You will work, or you will die. The moon shows no mercy." "I didn't think I was checking into a resort," Marcus replied dryly. His first days were grueling. The HFY worked tirelessly to maintain their village and its defenses, and Marcus quickly realized how ill-suited he was to their way of life. Hunting was a disaster. He lacked the speed and precision to keep up. Gathering food and materials required traversing treacherous terrain, and more than once, Marcus slipped or fell, earning scornful glances from his companions. His struggles didn't go unnoticed. Veska observed him with a mixture of disappointment and frustration, while her second-in-command, Lyra, found endless amusement in his failures. Lyra was younger and more impulsive than Veska, with a sharp tongue and a mischievous streak. She often teased Marcus, calling him soft-skinned and offering sarcastic advice. "Maybe you should just lie down and wait for the jungle to eat you," she said one evening after Marcus had botched a fishing attempt, his net tangled hopelessly in his hands. "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Marcus muttered, pulling at the net. But beneath the teasing, there was a flicker of curiosity in Lyra's eyes. Unlike Veska, she seemed genuinely intrigued by Marcus and his strange, alien ways. Earning respect. Realizing he couldn't match the HFY in physical prowess, Marcus focused on what he could do, problem-solving. When a drought threatened the village's water supply, Marcus repurposed parts from his ship's wreckage to build a makeshift filtration system, using hollowed-out crystals to collect and purify water. It wasn't perfect, but it worked, earning him grudging nods of approval from Veska and the elders. His engineering skills became an asset. He repaired damaged tools, created rudimentary lighting systems, and even devised traps to deter the jungle's predators. Slowly, the HFY began to see him as more than a burden. One evening, as Marcus sat by a communal fire, Lyra approached, carrying a small bowl of glowing fruit. "For you," she said, sitting beside him. "Thanks," Marcus said, cautiously taking a bite. The fruit was sweet and tangy, its juices tingling on his tongue. Lyra watched him for a moment before speaking. "You're strange, soft-skinned. Weak but clever. Why?" Marcus laughed softly. "I'm just human. We survived by figuring things out." Lyra tilted her head, considering this. "Maybe that's not so weak." The sacred grove. Just as Marcus began to feel a tentative sense of belonging, he made a critical mistake. While exploring the jungle in search of materials, he stumbled into a grove unlike anything he'd seen before. Massive flowers glowed with an otherworldly light, their petals shifting colors as they swayed. The air was thick with a hum that resonated in his chest. Before he could take a step further, Veska and a group of warriors appeared, their faces filled with fury. "This is sacred ground," Veska shouted, her voice shaking with anger. "No outsider is allowed here." "I didn't know," Marcus stammered. "I was just Dash." "Enough," Veska snapped. She turned to the others. "Take him to the elders." Marcus's stomach sank as he was dragged back to the village. He had worked so hard to gain their trust, and now it seemed he had destroyed it in an instant. As the elders deliberated his fate, he couldn't shake the feeling that this time, there might be no second chances. The elders' verdict was swift: Marcus would remain in the village, but he was forbidden from wandering unaccompanied. Veska warned him that a repeat offense would not be tolerated. While he was relieved to avoid exile, Marcus couldn't shake the sense that the fragile trust he had built with the HFY had been irreparably damaged. But fate, as it often did on this perilous moon, had other plans. The awakening it began with a subtle tremor, so faint that Marcus dismissed it as his imagination. But over the next few days, the vibrations grew stronger, accompanied by distant, bone-chilling howls that echoed through the jungle at night. The Averii grew tense, their usual stoicism giving way to whispered conversations and worried glances. One evening, as Marcus sat by the fire tinkering with a broken energy cell, Vesca approached him. She stood silently for a moment, her face illuminated by the flickering flames, before speaking. "The shadow beasts are awakening." Marcus looked up, confused. "Shadow beasts?" "They are ancient predators," Vesca explained, her voice grim. "They burrow deep beneath the moon's surface and emerge only during the bioluminescent season, when the land is most alive. They are drawn to the light, to the energy. They hunt relentlessly, and they cannot be stopped by our weapons." Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. "How many of them are we talking about?" "Enough to destroy the village," Vesca said bluntly. Preparation and despair. The village erupted into a flurry of activity as the Averii prepared for the inevitable. Barricades were reinforced, weapons were sharpened, and traps were laid around the perimeter. Despite their efforts, an air of hopelessness hung heavy over the village. The shadow beasts had ravaged their ancestors' settlements, leaving only ruins behind. Marcus couldn't sit idly by while the Averii prepared for what felt like a doomed fight. He spent hours poring over his limited supplies and the salvaged components from the Stellar Nomad. If the Averei's traditional weapons couldn't harm the shadow beasts, perhaps his technology could. Lyra found him late one night, surrounded by a chaotic mess of wires and tools. She crouched beside him, her expression curious. "What are you doing, Softskin?" "Trying to rig up an energy weapon," Marcus replied, not looking up. "If I can amplify the power cells from my ship, I might be able to create something strong enough to hurt those things." Lyra frowned. "You think your little gadgets can do what our spears cannot?" "I think it's worth a shot," Marcus said. "Unless you have a better idea." To his surprise, Lyra smiled. "I don't. But you'd better not blow yourself up." The first attack the shadow beasts arrived with the setting of the twin suns. The jungle fell eerily silent, as if the entire moon was holding its breath. Then, the ground trembled, and from the darkness emerged horrors that defied comprehension. The creatures were massive, their semi-transparent bodies glowing faintly with an internal light. Their elongated limbs ended in razor-sharp claws, and their eyes burned like molten gold. They moved with terrifying speed, their forms flickering in and out of the shadows as if the darkness itself obeyed them. The Averii met the attack head-on, their warriors charging with a fierce battle cry. Marcus stood on a platform with Vesca, his makeshift energy weapon in hand. It was a crude, cobbled-together device, but it was all he had. The first wave of shadow beasts struck the barricades, their claws tearing through wood and crystal as if it were paper. The Averii spears and arrows slowed them down but failed to deliver any lethal blows. It was chaos. Screams, growls, and the splintering of defenses filled the air. "Now, Marcus!" Vesca shouted. Marcus aimed his weapon at the nearest shadow beast and fired. A searing beam of energy lanced out, striking the creature in the chest. It let out a guttural roar, staggering backward as its translucent skin burned and crackled. The Averii warriors around it seized the opportunity, driving their spears into the weakened beast and bringing it down. "It works!" Marcus shouted, relief flooding him. But there was no time to celebrate. More beasts surged forward, their numbers overwhelming. A desperate stand. As the battle raged on, Marcus's weapon proved to be the village's only hope. He moved from platform to platform, firing at the shadow beasts and shouting instructions to the Averii. Lyra fought beside him, her movements graceful and deadly as she drove her spear into the creatures weakened by Marcus's blasts. But the beasts were relentless. They breached the inner defenses, tearing through homes and scattering the villagers. Marcus's weapon overheated, forcing him to retreat to a higher platform to cool it down. Vesca appeared beside him, blood streaking her armor. We can't hold them much longer. Marcus's mind raced. He glanced at the glowing crystals embedded in the village structures, an idea forming. The crystals, are they conductive? Yes, Vesca said, frowning. Why? If we channel the energy from my weapon through the crystals, we might be able to create a barrier. It could repel the beasts or at least buy us some time. It's risky, Vesca said. But we have no other choice. The turning point. With Vesca's help, Marcus rigged his weapon to the village's crystal network, using vines and metal fragments as conduits. It was a crude setup, and Marcus wasn't entirely sure it would work. Get everyone to safety, Marcus told Vesca as he made the final adjustments. If this fails... It won't, Vesca said firmly, her violet eyes meeting his. The moon brought you here for a reason. With a deep breath, Marcus activated the system. The crystals flared to life, their glow intensifying as the energy surged through them. A web of light spread across the village, forming a radiant barrier that pulsed with raw power. The shadow beasts hesitated, their forms flickering as they approached the barrier. When one tried to breach it, the energy surged, sending it flying back with a howl. The remaining beasts snarled and paced outside the barrier, unable to advance. Cheers erupted from the Arvarii as the creatures retreated into the jungle. The village was battered but intact. Aftermath. As dawn broke, the Arvarii gathered around Marcus, their expressions a mixture of awe and gratitude. Vesca stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have saved us, Marcus Vance. Perhaps the moon was right to bring you here. Lyra grinned, elbowing Marcus. Not bad for a soft skin. Marcus smiled, exhaustion washing over him. For the first time since he had crash-landed on this strange moon, he felt like he truly belonged. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but wonder, was this victory only temporary? And what other dangers lay hidden in the shadows? The days following the battle with the shadow beasts were a mix of relief and rebuilding. The village bore scars from the attack-shattered barricades, scorched trees, and homes reduced to rubble, but the Arvarii were resilient. Marcus, now regarded as more than an outsider, worked side by side with them to repair the damage. For the first time since his crash, he felt at home. But his newfound peace would not last. The sky splits had happened at dawn. Marcus was high in the treetops, helping Lyra weave a new bridge between two platforms, when a sound like thunder rolled across the sky. He looked up to see a fiery streak cutting through the heavens. A ship. Is that? Lyra began, her voice tinged with awe and concern. It's human, Marcus said, his heart pounding. The streak grew brighter as the craft descended, heading for a clearing just beyond the village. Marcus scrambled down from the platform, shouting for Vesca. We need to go now. The Arvarii warriors, led by Vesca, quickly gathered. Though they were wary of the approaching vessel, they trusted Marcus's judgment. Vesca nodded, and the group set off toward the clearing. When they arrived, the ship, a sleek, silver dropship emblazoned with the insignia of the United Systems fleet, had already landed. A ramp extended, and a figure descended, flanked by armed crew members in high-tech combat suits. The leader was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an air of authority. She stopped at the base of the ramp, scanning the area before her gaze locked onto Marcus. Lieutenant Vance, she said, her voice carrying across the clearing. I never thought I'd see you again. Marcus stepped forward, his throat dry. Captain Reed? Reed nodded, her expression softening. We received your distress beacon, though it took months to track the signal through the interference. Looks like we got here just in time. Marcus hesitated, glancing back at Vesca, Lyra, and the other Arvarii warriors standing behind him. Their expressions were unreadable, but their tense stances betrayed their unease. I'm glad to see you, Captain. But things are complicated. Two worlds collide. The Averii and the humans regarded each other warily. Captain Reed and her crew had never encountered a species like the Averii before, and their awe was evident. Likewise, the Averii viewed the humans with suspicion, their advanced technology both fascinating and unsettling. Vesca stepped forward, her posture commanding. "You are of Marcus's kind?" Reed activated her translator, her voice coming through clear. "Yes. We've come to retrieve him. He's been stranded for far too long." Vesca's eyes narrowed. "He has become part of our tribe. He is not yours to take." The tension was palpable. Marcus stepped between them, raising his hands. "Hold on. Vesca, these are my people. They're here to help. And Captain, the Averii saved my life. I wouldn't have survived without them." Reed crossed her arms, her gaze skeptical. "Be that as it may, Lieutenant, you're still a United Systems officer. Your place is with us." Lyra stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He is more than just one of your soldiers. He has fought for us, bled for us. He belongs here." The argument escalated, voices rising on both sides. Marcus felt torn, caught between two worlds. Finally, he raised his voice, silencing them. "Enough. This isn't a decision we can make here. A daring proposal." That night, Marcus sat by the village fire, deep in thought. Vesca and Lyra joined him, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. "You must decide," Vesca said quietly. "Do you leave with them, or stay with us?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Earth is my home, but so is this place. I can't just walk away from everything we've built here." Lyra's voice was softer than usual. "Then don't. Bring them together." Marcus looked at her, frowning. "What do you mean?" "Show your people what we can offer," Lyra said. "And show us what they can offer. Maybe this is not about leaving one home for another. Maybe it's about building something new." The idea took root in Marcus's mind. He spent hours crafting a plan, and the next morning, he approached Captain Reed and Vesca with his proposal. "The Averii and humanity don't have to be enemies," he said. "We can share knowledge, resources, and technology. The Averii have survived on this moon for centuries. They understand it in ways we never could. And humanity has tools and expertise that could make life here easier." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting an alliance?" "Yes," Marcus said. "But it has to be built on mutual respect. We can't just barge in and take over." Vesca folded her arms, her expression thoughtful. "And how do we know your people will honor such a partnership?" "You'll have me," Marcus said. "I'll stay here and act as a bridge between our worlds." Both leaders regarded him in silence for a long moment. Finally, Reed nodded. "It's unconventional, but you've always been good at finding solutions, Vance. I'll bring your proposal to command." Vesca's lips curved into a faint smile. "You are a strange man, Marcus Vance. But perhaps the moon chose wisely. A new beginning." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Captain Reed's crew worked with the Averii to establish a communication outpost, and the United Systems sent researchers and diplomats to learn about the moon and its inhabitants. The Averii, in turn, shared their knowledge of the land, teaching the humans how to navigate its dangers and harness its resources. For Marcus, it was the beginning of a new chapter. He became a mediator, translating not just language but culture, ensuring that both sides approached the alliance with respect and understanding. One evening, as he stood on a platform overlooking the glowing jungle, Lyra joined him. She leaned against the railing, her silver hair catching the moonlight. "You could have left," she said. "Gone back to your people." Marcus smiled. "I did go back to my people. They're just a lot greener than I expected." Lyra laughed, a sound that made Marcus feel like he truly belonged. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. As the twin moons rose, casting their light over the village, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. Two worlds had collided, but together, they could create something entirely new, a future shaped by the courage to bridge the divide between the stars.